Well, welcome to another edition of Believe in the Bronx, the pre-Thanksgiving post-GM meetings edition. Pete Caldera in New York, Mike Stetton, obviously, in Houston. And, it's still the Aaron Judge season until it isn't anymore, Mike. And the latest we got out of Brian Cashman before he went to do his annual sleep out at the Covenant House in Manhattan, which is a really terrific thing he does to promote and awareness for youth homelessness and raise a lot of money. When he talked baseball, he mentioned that the Yankees have a new offer out to Aaron Judge. Now, there's a lot of vagaries within that because the last offer they put forth that we knew about was right before opening day, and that was rejected, 213.5 for 7 years. That was to begin in 2023. This new offer, we don't know about the money or the length, but I have to think that to get Judge signed, that number's got to start with a 3. Just my opinion, my speculation, but that's about where he is after that historic MVP season, and of course he comes away with 28 out of 30 votes for the first place in the MVP ballot.
Well, you had a strong feeling that as soon as he turned down the last offer and bet on himself and then the season he had, that, the offer's got to go up. I mean, it was pretty funny. I was talking to someone earlier today and they said, well, what about just making the same offer again? Like, you want to make sure he leaves? He's American League MVP. Offer him the same thing.
Right.
Or even reduce it. Yeah, it has gone up. It's probably gone up in years. It's probably gone up in AAV. But again, like you said, we're just speculating. Brian did not allude to what it is, but it is a substantial offer. This is something that the Judge is going to have to really scratch his head about. The other thing we have to remember that we're still very early in this process. We're not even to the winter meetings yet, which isn't for another couple of weeks. So, this is I understand Brian needs to get this done. He wants to get this done. He's got other fish to fry, but it really starts with Judge. And once they can get this done, if they get this done, then he can move on to what other issues this team may or may not have.
Right. In his post MVP press conference, Judge did allude to the fact that, whatever team signs him, he's got some impetus to get it done, earlier than
sooner than later. Right.
Yeah. Just so his new team or the Yankees can start to build their roster around him. Now, the Yankees already made that quick first strike to sign Anthony Rizzo for 2 years with a team option. That's only a positive, I think, when it comes to the fact that Judge could be back in the Bronx. The other point about the other positive thing that's happening is they've kept the dialogue going, and it's been positive. We spoke with Hal Steinbrenner earlier this week, and he mentioned that he felt the need to be proactive, to reach out to Judge and sit down and have a one-on-one, which is pretty rare for Hal to do this with any kind of free agent. But then again, Aaron Judge is no average free agent. If you want him back, you have to tell him in no uncertain terms, we want to keep you in pinstripes, and this is the plan we have when you come back.
Yeah, and I think the reason why he felt like he really needed to be proactive was because as soon as the World Series was over, actually it was during the post-game, post-World Series show with Pedro Martinez, they were talking about how, well, they didn't do this right and they didn't do right. So there was already kind of a negative spin on the whole Aaron Judge situation. And, now that you throw out there that there's other teams involved, and, one thing you want to make sure when you're going after a free agent, especially your own free agent, you want to make sure they know that they're wanted, that they, we want you back. You are an integral part of this team, of this organization, of this city, of this community. And you want to make sure that they know that. And, that's one of the, this is the Yankees are notorious for letting their marquee players get to free agency and then turn around and bring them back. George did it. George Steinbrenner did it all the time. So there's always, once they get out there, once they're in the market, there's always that chance that they could go somewhere else. The Yankees have to sign Aaron Judge. They have to do everything they possibly can to sign him, because this team is a shell of what it was last year without Aaron Judge moving forward in 2023. So I like the idea that everybody wants to get this done quickly. When you're talking about a contract of this size, that doesn't usually happen all that often. But hey, if both sides are willing to, butt up to the table and really get down to brass tacks, then you can get it done. So we'll have to wait and see what this is going to do. And, there is some risk to this, a lot of times what you see from a position player or a player, you get called up to the big leagues, you struggle. Then you make your adjustments. Now you become, through your best years. After that, you start reverting back to what you were at the beginning. So we know that even if it was a 7-year deal, the last couple seasons may be tough. If it's a longer deal, obviously that's going to, the last several seasons may have issues, but it's what you got to get done to get the player now, because without Aaron Judge, this team just isn't going to be very competitive.
Well, you said that the plan B, whatever that would be, is going to be so much worse than than what the team would be if just get Judge signed. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Robinson Cano left the Yankees via free agency, and everyone thought this was going to be a slam dunk. He'll re-sign with the Yankees. They wanted him. It seemed like he wanted them. And when Seattle made that, blow you out of the water offer, which he took, the Yankees' plan B was to go take that savings and invest it in Jacoby Ellsbury. So an example of the plan B is
didn't quite work out right. Yeah,
not very. Yeah, you want to stick with plan A, and it would seem like as we discussed before, both sides still seem to want each other. Obviously Judge has put himself in the position. Brian Cashman said that, listen, he's earned the right to go shop himself to 29 other clubs. Now, what other clubs could match or exceed the Yankees offer? We're talking probably about a handful of them. And the San Francisco Giants are, you would assume, atop that list. And there are other inherent things that might attract Judge from Northern California to the Giants. But, we're still kind of in the early part of this horse race here. We really don't know. We know, we would assume the Yankees have a neck in front because they're his team and they have the offer out there that right now, whatever that offer is, Page Odell and Judge's team are either shopping that around or trying to find a way to beat that offer, and then probably come back to the Yankees and say, can you meet this or top this? But we're still very early in this horse race. And as you said, and Judge alluded to too, that, things might not heat up until we get to the winter meetings in San Diego in the first week of December.
Right. And that's usually when the free agent market really starts heating up, is when you get everybody in one spot. And luckily we do have winter meetings this year. Here's the other thing. It does sound like that this has been a substantial offer from Brian Cashman and the Yankees. We know that the Yankees also, they have a certain way of doing things. And I know this from experience. They did it to me not once, but twice, that they don't, they don't like the free agents to actually use the Yankees in negotiating with someone else. So we haven't heard of any timeline, and they're not going to do that. They don't want to push Judge like that. But a lot of times there were timelines put on their top offer, because they want to make sure that you don't go to the other teams and try and negotiate up to beat the Yankee offer. I don't think that's the case right here, but it does seem like there is some urgency from Brian Cashman and the Yankees to get this done. And I think that this offer that was made, just the way Brian spoke, and a lot of times, it's kind of like listening to politicians. You can't really listen to exactly the words they say. You got to kind of try and read in between the lines. And knowing Brian as well as we do, I feel like this was at least we're in the ballpark of getting this deal done just by him alluding to how big this offer could possibly be.
Right. Another thing that Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman discussed this week too was the fact that, and Hal just came out and said that he anticipated that Oswald Peraza and Anthony Volpe would be in the middle of the Yankees infield. They didn't give an exact time on that.
Yeah.
It sounded like sooner rather than later. Peraza, as we know, is going to be in the mix, if not the leading candidate to be the opening day shortstop. Volpe's situation, he's going to compete in spring training, but he's only played a handful of AAA games. They may want to, extend his development into part of 2023. But a lot of this has to do with what Brian Cashman can do on the trade front with his infielders. And reading between the lines, as you said, there's no question that Gleyber Torres is going to be a subject of trade talk again.
Sure, already is. Yeah,
already is right now. They would, I think, if you injected truth serum into them, they would dearly love to move Josh Donaldson and that $26 million anchor off third base right now and sort of free up that infield for the possibility of putting Volpe at second base perhaps at some time next year. Cabrera, who you saw had a very effective month and a half, who can play anywhere, and there's still some question, but a need to put DJ LeMahieu probably at third base next year. But, Mike, the last time we spoke with Cashman, they still really have no clarity on this right foot issue with LeMahieu. They're going to go the conservative route for the next 6 weeks. And if it doesn't resolve itself, then they're looking at surgery. They still don't know what type of surgery because it's a delicate issue with the right big toe and the right second toe ligament damage right now. There's a possibility that LeMahieu, if he has to go the surgery route, might not be ready for opening day. So you've got all that stuff in the mix right now with a bit of an unsettled infield. But the only thing we really do know is Rizzo's back at first base, and Peraza is going to have a real big role on this team in 2023, and perhaps Volpe along the lines maybe by the All-Star break.
Yeah, we've discussed it before. They need DJ LeMahieu. You also have to remember Andrew Benintendi is a free agent. I think they would like to bring him back. They need more contact in that lineup. The recent rumors I've heard, even as early as today, is the Seattle Mariners would really like to work out a trade with the Yankees for Gleyber Torres to put them in the lineup that they're building out there. So, there's a lot going on, and it's kind of crazy. We don't usually have action like this. We don't have rumors like this really until the winter meetings start. So it's
this Jerry Dipoto wants to make another trade before the winter meetings.
Yeah, is that crazy? Not Jerry. Jerry hates to make trades. My gosh. There's just a lot of balls in the air right now for the Yankees and Brian Cashman, but the first, you can't really figure out, what one of the plan Bs may be if Judge doesn't, even if the Judge does, could you venture into the shortstop market? There's in particular 4, but even more very good shortstops that are out there. I mean, that could be an option if Judge they aren't able to figure out the contract situation with Judge. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's tough because, really Judge in a way kind of holding the Yankees, kind of holding them hostage a little bit because they can't really figure out what the rest of their budget's going to be, what the rest of this roster is going to be until they know if Judge is actually going to come back and play in the Bronx.
Yeah. Yeah, I would probably put the Trey Turner, Carlos Correa, if they're playing on those guys, would be part of that plan B if Judge won off the board. But
it's Correa, Turner, Xander Bogaerts, Dansby Swanson are the 4 big ones.
Right, and and maybe that one of those players would be in consideration as a third baseman for the Yankees. But I think that kind of expenditure, Mike, I think we're, and this is just reading the tea leaves here, would only be in play if the Judge contract if Judge went elsewhere, because I would anticipate that the Yankees would want to put all their eggs in that big basket, and you wonder how much they would really have left to spend on a big expenditure. Because you're talking in excess of $100 million, obviously, for any of those contracts. They still want to play on some pitching. I mean, if they're in the Carlos Rodon discussions, you're talking about another 100 million. That
Yeah.
might be realistic either, but based on the parameters of whatever their budget is beyond Judge. But they're still in the relief market. I think an Andrew Chafin would be a good get. I think they could use another left-hander in that pen. They also have some depth within their own organization, whether they see a Clark Schmidt as a long-term starter or reliever. He could do either. They've got Herman in the number 5 spot, but I think they'll look to upgrade that the back of the end of that rotation, because they still have at least some health question marks going into the season, perhaps with a Frankie Montas. So chalk that up to you can never have enough pitching kind of thing.
Right.
But I think this is right. You're fixated on getting Judge done, but you can't sacrifice the other needs you have on your roster.
Well, this is why general managers don't really sleep at this time of year, is because you can't do things just one at a time. You have to have multiple negotiations going on. You're having meetings every day. You're trying to get new ideas in what direction do you want your organization to go in. And you got to have a plan A, B, C, D. I mean, keep going on down through the alphabet, because you just don't know what's going to happen. It just seems to be happening a little bit earlier this year, but you can see Brian Cashman's got his work cut out for him this year, because they've got, this is a good team. Yes, they made it to the ALCS, but this is a flawed team. And, Brian and the Yankee fans in particular are really getting kind of irritated. We heard the reaction to even Judge at the end of the ALCS with the Boo Birds showing up. They want another World Series championship. It's been a long time, and Yankee fans are not used to waiting this long. So, they have there's some pressure on Brian and the Yankees to get some things done and make this team better for 23.
Yeah, and there's so many other factors too that kind of link them to having to have Judge here. I mean, they have a Yes Network that, depending on programming, that needs star power, and there was no better star power last year than watching the ratings soar as Judge marched towards Roger Maris's home run record. You look out of the press box and you're going to see half the stands filled with number 99 jerseys.
Right.
It's marketing, it's branding, it's television ratings, it's so much more than than just the wins and losses on the field that go towards the Yankee bottom line, and saying that, and which goes back to Judge making that wager on his own performance and betting he was better than a $30.5 million annual average salary. Wanted in the neighborhood of 36 at the time. And now what are you looking at here, Mike? 38, 40?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, he could, if you get a couple teams. Now, listen, you said it earlier in this podcast that, you said maybe a handful of teams. I think that's stretching it. I think there's 2 or 3 teams that have a real opportunity here. One of them may be the Dodgers. The Dodgers have just taken a lot of money off their books. They just non-tendered Cody Bellinger. That was good. That's $18 million right there. There's some other contracts that came off the books. So the Dodgers have some wiggle room. Now, Andrew Friedman isn't a guy that they brought in to go to the top of the free agent market all the time. But, the Dodgers are another team, in this long run, they've won 1 World Series. That's it. They are, and Clayton Kershaw getting older, they brought him back, but, there's a lot of things that are going on there that, they don't want to be the Buffalo Bills. They don't want to be the Denver Broncos, have a great run, but only win. Atlanta Braves did the same thing. 14 straight divisional titles and 1 World Series. So there's some pressure in LA also. So there's only a couple teams that can kind of swim in this pool that is Aaron Judge. But I still think that, especially with everything being positive the way it is, I think Brian Cashman gets it done.
I I would bet on that too. If you had to make a wager on it, that you'd still think that the Yankees have more inherently going for them in this race than the other teams. And the fact that they're, I watched Brian Cashman take a text message from Aaron Judge after Judge won the MVP. Cash like dashed off a congratulatory
Right.
text and got one back in about 20 minutes after Judge was done with his press conference. So they're keeping it cordial. They're keeping the lines of communication open. I mean, can't read into anything more than that, than the fact that at least they're talking, and
Right.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, it really is. And hopefully this is sooner than later. But, I'll even take it one step further. You said how important it is, to have 99, the jerseys and everything. I think it's important for the whole industry. I think having Aaron Judge in New York, the season he had, really the face of the franchise. There's not anybody else that you could really put your finger on. He's homegrown. There's just so many things that Aaron Judge makes sense in New York. So, like I said, I think they get it done, and then Brian Cashman can move on to some of the other issues and have a better idea of what his budget's going to look like going forward. Yes, even the New York Yankees have a budget.
Yeah, no, and Hal was very vague about that budget. He basically said it'll be dictated by what he has to pay for Judge right now. So that's the budget there is getting Judge done, and then I guess they'll figure everything else out around it. But right, there are areas that they can pare down payroll if they somehow get some of Donaldson's money off the books. Gleyber Torres would be looking at about a $10 million contract if he were as arbitration eligible if he were to come back to the Yankees. So that's money you can take off the books too. Fortunately for the Yankees, in a lot of other areas, the Nestor Cortezes and Harrison Bader's already locked up. I mean, they have pieces in place that are not expensive pieces that can help them. But as you mentioned too, Benintendi is on their list. They've that's gonna take 4 years and probably over $40 million to get a guy like that back in the fold if you do that. So there are other areas that they need that it's going to cost them Rizzo type money to get these pieces back in place. So
and I think Benintendi needs to happen with or without Judge. Either way, they need that contact in that lineup. That was a big problem. The three true outcomes that this team was kind of designed around. You got to have somebody to get on base. You can't just hit home run, solo home runs and expect to win a whole bunch of baseball games.
Absolutely. Well, that I'm hoping you have a very happy Thanksgiving.
You do the same. Everyone out there have a happy, safe Thanksgiving. I know there's a lot of bad weather up there in the Northeast, especially in the Buffalo area as we speak right now. The crazy amounts of snow, and my gosh, we're not even to Thanksgiving yet. Who knows what December and January and February have in store?
It's sunny and cold. It's just making me wish that the winter meetings in San Diego were here sooner than later. But they will be in December
right around the corner. Yep,
exactly. We'll be in San Diego, but we'll be talking right before then, and for another edition of Believe in the Bronx. Mike,
happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.